Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's good. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Ja Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish, recording this episode from the world-famous Bonaventure Hotel in sunny Los Angeles. The Game 3 result I was hoping to witness, did not happen. The Lakers came out and punched the Grizzlies in the mouth and ended up taking Game 3, taking the all-important swing game in a 1-1 series as the Grizzlies fell behind by 26 at the end of the first quarter. The Grizzlies only managed 9 points in that first quarter. The big highlight takeaways from this from a Grizzlies perspective: you have the performance of Ja Morant. Ja Morant played, and he played well. He scored 45 points. He ran off 22 straight points in the fourth quarter. He tied his career high with 6 made three-pointers. That's one story. The other story that honestly might be bigger nationally is Dillon Brooks got ejected. And before he got ejected, he struggled. And before the game even started, he was heckled by fans. Fans showed up 90 minutes early to boo Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks, who has attracted so much media attention for his post-game comments and his comments for a lot of the season. His post-game comments after a Game 2 victory, calling out LeBron James. All of the media attention since then has been basically having to ask people about the Dillon Brooks quotes and what it means. And LeBron James got frustrated about it at his press conference. And the reason all the media questions are about this, it's because this is what generates the listens and the clicks and the views. And so Dillon Brooks set himself up, and he possibly set the Grizzlies up for this heightened scrutiny. And the story of the game, yeah, Anthony Davis was amazing. Yes, Ja Morant was amazing. Yes, the Lakers got to play a home game in front of a full capacity crowd for the first time in 10 years. But the story is, Dillon Brooks came out and was awful on the court. The Grizzlies fell down huge, and then Dillon Brooks gets ejected in the third quarter. Swipes at the ball, hits LeBron James in the groin. Apparently, the NBA is very obsessed with striking players in the groin. I guess they need be. I feel like the ejection was warranted. Whether the ejection turns out to be more, as far as the suspension, because of Dillon Brooks' history. If there's no history, of course there's no suspension here. But the NBA sort of opened a weird Pandora's box, it feels like, by citing history with Draymond Green. But now we have unintentional. Again, this is one where, like, I talked last episode on Fast Break Breakfast about the referees. When you look at flagrant fouls and extracurricular activity, you have to try to guess intent. But if you can't guess intent, like Dillon Brooks swiping for the ball thinking LeBron's going to do a crossover, but LeBron goes behind his back, to eject a guy and then suspend a guy seems excessive. It also begs the question, what happens when there's an actual incident? What happens when someone actually punches somebody now? Is that going to be multiple game suspension in the playoffs? But Dillon Brooks made himself the center of attention, and he did not live up to that. He did not step up to the plate and deliver. He turned all eyes on him. He made this game, maybe this series, he made it about him. And then he misses 8 of his first 9 shots. He takes 13 field goal attempts in the first half as the Grizzlies are getting smoked. Then he gets ejected. And then after the game, he doesn't want to talk to media. He says he's done talking. I don't know for the Grizzlies what they're supposed to do with this situation. But let's save some of that talk for a little bit later. Let's focus more on what happened basketball-wise and what Ja Morant did. The first quarter, like I said, this was a exciting game for Lakers fans since COVID restrictions had kept them from attending previous playoff games. Of course, they won the title in the bubble. The following year, they only had a couple of playoff games with limited capacity because of California's restrictions to large crowds and such. And then, of course, they missed the playoffs last year. So this was LeBron James' first time as a Laker to play in front of a sellout crowd. And honestly, pregame, I was thinking it would be extremely wild and raucous inside. It wasn't really. But then once the game got going, and it was a perfect start for the Lakers, simultaneously a worst possible start for the Grizzlies. Lakers score early. They get LeBron James a bucket on the first possession. Ja Morant takes it to the rim, does not get a call. I don't think he was warranted a call. He takes it at Anthony Davis, who's been the best player in the entire series and absolutely dominant on defense. And then Lakers score again, and then the Grizzlies begin the Dillon Brooks brick shots. They start turning the basketball over. The Grizzlies fall behind 18-2. And once the first quarter is over, it is, I believe, by any statistical measure, the worst playoff quarter in Grizzlies franchise history. The 9 points scored in the first quarter, that's the fewest points the Grizzlies have ever scored in a playoff quarter. It's the fewest points scored by any team in any quarter this season, postseason and regular season. The 26-point deficit, that's the most the Grizzlies have ever been outscored in any quarter in their playoff history. The second worst quarter, as far as point differential, is the famous Nick Young game, Game 1 against the Clippers, where the Grizzlies blew a massive second-half lead. They were outscored by 22 in that fourth quarter. I was also at that fourth quarter. I'm not happy necessarily that I've witnessed probably the 2 most awful playoff quarters in Grizzlies franchise history. This was the largest lead in NBA playoff history for any team after the first quarter. It was tied for the largest margin after the first quarter. 26-point lead. In that first quarter, the Grizzlies were 3 for 25 from the field. That's 12%. They had 6 turnovers and 1 assist. 1 for 13 on three-pointers. The starting lineup was 1 for 12 from the field. Dillon Brooks, again, who had been booed since an hour and a half before the game. Dillon in the first quarter missed all 4 of his shots and had a turnover. Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. played 6 and 5 minutes respectively because of foul trouble. In the first half, where the Grizzlies did rally, the Lakers really had a poor finish to the first half. The Grizzlies actually got, I would say, a little bit of momentum. They set themselves up where, it was a game to bounce back from what, again, looked like maybe the worst first 18 minutes of a basketball game I've ever seen. At least it might have been the worst quarter and a half from any team that had 2 All-Stars. This was not the Oklahoma City Thunder playing with nobodies, losing a game by 73. Halfway through the second quarter, the Grizzlies were down by 29. They had 7 field goals made and 10 turnovers. At that point, Jaren, which is his first half stats, because he picked up his 3rd foul. At that point, Jaren Jackson Jr. had 4 turnovers and was scoreless. Dillon was 1 for 9 from the field at this point. Halfway through the second quarter, the Grizzlies were shooting 18% and down by 29. I'm not lying. I've never seen anything like it. It was a team that was totally shell-shocked. And you can ask the question, and I think it's fair to ask the question, and Taylor Jenkins was asked the question after the game, basically, was the moment too big for the Grizzlies? And there's a pattern here. This is the third straight Game 3 on the road where the Grizzlies have been behind by 26 points or more. 3 straight series now. They've been down by 26 or more in the Game 3. Against Minnesota, they came back and won. They came back and won by 9, I think. That was a great watch party in Nashville last year. Apologies to everyone in Nashville who came out to the watch party on Saturday night. I obviously was not there. What a brutal start to this game. And then, of course, last year, Game 3 against the Warriors in the second round, it wasn't the early fall down. I mean, they fell down early, but it was sort of competitive for most of the game until the Warriors ran away with it in the fourth quarter and won by 30. But the Grizzlies seemed ill-equipped for the hostile road environment. They seemed ill-equipped to deal with what Dillon Brooks had maybe set them up for. Maybe there were some nerves just about Ja Morant not trusting his hand, about wondering if he was going to get injured again. I mean, Ja Morant got better and better as the game went on, quite obviously, with that 24-point fourth quarter. But there was a play in the second quarter where Ja attacked really, really hard towards the basket, and in my mind, he moved quicker to the basket than he had yet in this series. I don't have any sports science data to back that up, but there was one where he exploded and was actually moving seemed like as fast as he could with the ball. I think maybe that was him gaining some confidence. But the Grizzlies got down so big, they dug way too big of a hole, where even when they did, close that first half with some fairly okay, I would say good defense, solid defense, and they cut into that lead and only trailed by 16 at the break. I mean, they only allowed 18 points in the second quarter to the Lakers. That's good stuff. One of the funny things is they used a lineup because of the foul trouble to Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. They used a lineup that they've never used before that was Ja Morant and Tyus Jones with John Conchar and Dillon Brooks with Xavier Tillman at the 5. I think it's interesting they've never used that lineup before because all 5 of those guys have been on the team for the last 3 years. These guys have all been here, and yet this is the first time they've all shared the court together. They played some good defense. Conchar was the 10th man to check into the game for the Grizzlies. There was some question whether they would go 10 deep. I do believe they went 10 deep because of the foul trouble of not being able to play Jaren. I mean, Conchar was solid in Game 2, made some nice plays, most notably the block on Anthony Davis. So maybe with the confidence they had in him coming off that Game 2, they felt better about putting him in Game 3. But Conchar, I thought, he played okay in the 5 minutes he played in the first half. And the Grizzlies cut it to 16. But then in the second half, you get Dillon Brooks thrown out. The Grizzlies fall back down by 20. They do continue to apply pressure, and I would say it got a little exciting in the fourth quarter. I don't feel like the Lakers fans ever really got that nervous. The Grizzlies got within 13 with about 7 minutes left in the game. And then in the too little, too late department, Ja started nailing threes, and they actually made it a single-digit game with 2 minutes left. A little bit exciting, but of course, again, too little, too late. Can they take this momentum, the second half momentum, the fourth quarter momentum, can they use that to carry over into Game 4? Obviously, we hope so. After the first quarter, with the Grizzlies outscored the Lakers by 16. Is there anything you can take from that? I don't know, maybe. Ja Morant's 45 points, that's the third most he's scored in a playoff game. He has 2 47-point playoff games. With his third career playoff game of 45 points or more, Ja Morant is now tied with LeBron James for the most 45-point playoff games before the age of 24. Ja Morant's 24-point fourth quarter, that's the third most points in a quarter on record for the playoffs. These stats only go back the last 26 seasons. Allen Iverson had a 26-point fourth quarter. Dame Lillard had a 25-point quarter in 2019 against the Thunder. Players with 45 points and 10 assists in a playoff game by age 25. Ja joins Luka and Trae Young as the only players that do that. There's a stat from Sean Coleman. Players to have at least 3 45-point playoff games in their first 20 playoff games. Ja has 3 now. Only Wilt Chamberlain and Michael Jordan had more. They both had 4. Ja Morant played the entire second and third quarters, and then he came out for 1 minute at the start of the fourth quarter. He played the final 11 minutes. So that is 35 of the final 36 minutes Ja Morant played. Now, Jaren Jackson Jr., who obviously battled foul trouble in the first half, finally had, I think, what we would call like a not very good game. He finished with 13 points, 5 rebounds, had 2 nice steals, but also had 6 turnovers. He finished with 4 personal fouls, which again fuels maybe my rage and some of the other Grizzlies fans' rage about the way we deal with foul trouble. Jaren played almost 23 minutes of the second half, so he only sat for a little over 1 minute. Desmond Bane played 23 minutes in the second half. He only sat for 1 minute, which goes back to the foul trouble stuff. Desmond Bane's been in foul trouble in the first half every game this series. But as we know, he has not fouled out yet. So his minutes are artificially limited by Taylor Jenkins taking him out. Desmond Bane said post-game, I've got to be better. I keep getting in foul trouble. I'm struggling with foul trouble. I'm costing myself minutes. I don't know why we are sticking to this, worried if Desmond Bane is going to foul out. The quick recap of my position, like the Grizzlies were down 17 when Jaren picked up his second foul in the first quarter. So he goes to the bench. My position is, why are we saving him for the end of the game if the game might not be close at the end of the game? Isn't it more likely that the game isn't close at the end if you don't play Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane? I know this squirrely, never before used lineup of Tyus and Ja and Conchar and Dillon and Tillman, cut into the lead a little bit. They basically held serve. But I don't understand thinking, hey, if we only play Bane 10 minutes and Jaren 9 minutes in the first half, that gives us a better chance to win because they'll have all their fouls to use in the second half. You dug too big of a hole. Jaren went to the bench in the first quarter, but 2 fouls. They're down 17. Blink of the eye, now we're down 26. How does this help us win the basketball game? Jaren finishes with 4 fouls. Desmond Bane finished with 3 fouls. And only ends up playing, 33 minutes for the game. My opinion was coming into this series, to win this series, you got to ride your stars. You got to ride your guys. Desmond Bane has to play 40 minutes a game. We need Jaren to play as close to 40 minutes a game. We need Ja to play 40 minutes a game. Now, games 1 and 2, Jaren didn't have any foul trouble. I loved it. He played nearly 40 minutes in each of those games. Desmond's been struggling with foul trouble, and so he hasn't come close to playing 40 minutes, and I can't comprehend the decision that we're better off letting our bench players play as opposed to Desmond Bane. I can take some solace in regular season games to be like, hey, this is our system. This is how we do it. This is how we This is how we get our guys ready. This is how we let our bench guys and our deeper bench players get real-world experience. This is how Roddy develops, and this is how Zaire Williams develops, and this is how Aldama develops, because they're getting extra minutes because we trust them in the regular season, and we reap those rewards, we hope, later in the season. There is no later in the season, guys. Like, this is the playoffs. If we lose, we're done. If we lose, we're a 2 seed losing in the first round. We're a 2 seed losing to a lower seed for the second consecutive season. Is this going to help Roddy or Conchar down the line, like next season or the year after that? I could care less about that. I can't comprehend thinking, hey, our best odds of victory are taking Desmond Bane out with 3 fouls in the first half. In a game we're losing, we're down double digits. We're down 20. Now, some things I got wrong as far as at least my pre-series analysis or pre-series prediction. I thought Desmond Bane would be great in this series. I thought he would be, one of the top 5 players in this series. He hasn't been close to that. His stats turned out okay in this one after putting up back-to-back 6 for 18 games in games 1 and games 2. He scored 18 points, made 7 out of 14 field goal attempts, 3 out of 7 from 3. So the numbers look okay. The only number that looks bad is that 4 turnovers. The Grizzlies keep turning the basketball over. 18 turnovers. That's another prediction I got wrong. It looked like turnovers would be an advantage for the Grizzlies in this series. They were better in the regular season at taking care of the basketball than the Lakers, and they were better at forcing turnovers in the regular season than the Lakers. But the Grizzlies lose the turnover battle here, and Desmond Bane has not been himself. Maybe it is just the first half foul trouble, and he's not getting a rhythm. I thought Bane is going to be going for 20 every night, 25 sometimes, 30 sometimes. I wasn't sure how the Lakers could slow him down. Credit the Lakers. They've slowed him and the Grizzlies down. A lot of that goes to Anthony Davis, who, again, just an absolute monster. He had 31 points, 17 rebounds, and 3 blocks in this game. He is destroying everything in the paint. So maybe Desmond can't get that downhill Des going. Maybe the Lakers are being very disciplined about sticking with him on the perimeter. They're funneling the shots to Dillon Brooks. Again, first half, Dillon, 13 field goal attempts. Desmond Bane, 4. But if you're ranking the players in this series, I think it's AD 1. There's some argument. I would probably go Jaren 2, Ja because he missed a game. He's probably 4th. LeBron's probably 3rd. We don't need to nitpick who the top 4 are in their specific order. The best 4 in the series supposed to be AD and LeBron and Ja and Jaren. And who's been the 5th best player in this series? It's not Desmond Bane. Rui Hachimura. Let me do some more Rui stats at the end. Rui Hachimura is probably the 5th best player in this series. D'Angelo Russell was bad in game 2, but I would say his games 1 and 3 performances combined make him he's having a better series than Desmond Bane. If D'Angelo Russell outplays Desmond Bane, the Grizzlies can't win the series. So whether it's letting Desmond play through foul trouble, like they let Jaren play through foul trouble in the third quarter, I mean, good. I don't want to give anyone a pat on the head for doing something that seemed obvious, but they let Jaren play through picking up his 4th foul in the third quarter. Good. Hopefully we saw that, hey, guess what? He didn't pick up any more fouls. Now, Anthony Davis did go right at Jaren because of those 4 fouls, and maybe AD was more effective than he would have been otherwise. Like, it's not, I don't want to act like it's totally black and white, that you should leave your guys in with 3 fouls in the second quarter or 2 fouls in the first quarter. They are, like specifically Jaren, he'll be less effective if he's worried about foul trouble. But I still think less effective Jaren, I will take that over Santi Aldama or David Roddy or Don Conchar or Xavier Tillman or go on and on and on. Let's take a break now, and I will collect my thoughts and wrap up the show and also share the news that has just come out about Dillon Brooks and his possible suspension. Tip off your summer with Grizzlies youth basketball camps and register your child ages 6 to 13 for a 1 or 4 day session. With over 10 camps throughout the Mid-South, there's sure to be one near you. All campers will receive skilled basketball instruction, a camp shirt, a drawstring bag, and a Grizzlies branded basketball. Space is limited, so sign up today at memphisgrizzlies.com. All right, so the breaking news is Dillon Brooks will not receive any further punishment for striking LeBron James in the groin, poking the bear, so to speak. So Dillon Brooks will be available for Game 4. The natural joke here is that good for the Grizzlies or good for the Lakers? What do you do about Dillon Brooks? Dillon Brooks in the pregame, while he was being booed, he airballed a three-pointer. Just pregame, an hour before the game. The arena had a lot of people in there already and went nuts. I didn't see the airball. I was basically standing on the court, probably looking at my phone or talking to somebody. But this cheer went up that was stunningly loud. And it was unlike anything I've ever seen pregame. It's like videos I've seen of Steph Curry warming up at the height of Steph Mania, where people would get in as early as possible just to watch him shoot and would go nuts with all the shots he was making. Well, this was the opposite. Dillon missed a three, he airballed a three. The crowd went bonkers and then proceeded to jeer and cheer loudly as he kept bricking shots. He kept missing shots. He finally made one, and he got the sarcastic cheers. So this was pregame. And also, this is a thing he brought. You can, I think, fairly state he brought this upon himself. He did this on purpose. He spoke loudly and wanted to make headlines. I mean, if he didn't do it on purpose, he has to have some self-awareness that this is what the quotes are going to do. He has, there's no way he doesn't have that self-awareness. He spoke out. He made headlines. And then he didn't step up to the moment. Chris Harrington was telling me, before the game, we were chatting, and he was reminding me that last year in the Warriors series, after getting ejected for the flagrant 2 foul on Gary Payton 2, or Gary Payton 2 got injured, and then getting suspended when Dillon came back in Game 4 and was just this super villain. At that point, he hadn't spoken to the media. He'd said nothing incendiary to the media. I'm almost certain it was just all the anger over injuring, Gary Payton 2. He comes out and can't hit anything. And this is the Game 4 where most Grizzlies fans remember it as Dillon shooting them out of the game. The Grizzlies lost a close game. No Ja Morant. He wasn't available. He'd gotten hurt in Game 3. The Grizzlies were ahead for most of the game. Lost it at the wire. And Dillon's 5 for 19 in this game. It feels like Dillon sets himself up for these things where he gets booed every possession, and he's not that guy. I don't think he's good enough to handle that. And so now we're left with a Dillon Brooks who I think is actively harmful to you. I basically I've snapped. I'm where a lot of other people were last year. I feel like the Dillon Brooks experience is circling the drain on the Grizzlies. I didn't get the sensation last season when everyone else did. I remember having NBA players say, obviously NBA players who don't like Dillon Brooks, so I don't take them, in full faith. But I've heard NBA players say that the reason the Grizzlies can't win in the playoffs is because of Dillon Brooks. We all know the positives of Dillon as far as guarding the other team's best player. I think the pendulum has swung, at least for me, that it's just not worth it. There's even positives on the offensive side of the basketball. The ability to create his own shot is still valuable, even if he misses. It used to be more valuable when Steven Adams or Brandon Clark or Jonas Valanciunas or someone who could get an offensive rebound was here. But it's still valuable that he spaces the court. He's something the defense has to think about. But the defense right now, I think the Lakers, their game plan, very disciplined, let Dillon Brooks shoot. And he shot the Grizzlies out of the game in this first half. Dillon is now 13 for 40 in this series from the field. Guess what? In the regular season against the Lakers, he was 11 for 45 from the field. He's shooting 28% against the Lakers this season. 24 for 85. Get this. In 14 career games against LeBron James, Dillon Brooks is shooting 32%. He's 43 for 133 from the field in regular season games when LeBron James plays. And you add that with the 13 for 40 in this series, that's 56 for 173 from the field all time in games against LeBron James. In the last two Grizzlies playoff series, the 3 games against the Lakers, last year against the Warriors, 6-game series, he's shooting 32%. He also has 2 ejections and a suspension. He's making 34% on 2-pointers. He's making 30% of his 3-pointers. I recognize the wound is still fresh from yesterday, but I think I'm ready to be done. I think Dillon Brooks has played himself out of a ton of money, and his behavior has probably cost himself a ton of money in the past couple of months. The combination of the sound bites, the poke the bear, I don't respect anyone until they drop 40, combined with the performance he had in Game 3, combined with the ejection, another playoff ejection. I mean, maybe he's unfairly persecuted by the officials to a degree. Maybe to a degree. He's bringing this on himself. He's become an NBA pariah. Why would you attach that to Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. going forward? If you have confidence in Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr., I used to think he's a fine fourth guy because of the defense he can fit alongside. But the behavior combined with the playoff performance recently, for me, has finally turned to me, I guess. I would rather see John Conchar or Luke Kennard or David Roddy play. Maybe I am now unfairly disregarding how good the Grizzlies have been with Dillon Brooks on the court the past 3 seasons. But it's hit the point, and it hit the point in the first half last night, where it's just I don't understand how, as a fan, you can not just want to see something different. Just show me what happens if we don't play Dillon. We got to see it in the second half. Show me what happens. If it's just an average to below average player like Roddy, who's low usage, not nearly the defender. Roddy wasn't good yesterday. I mean, Roddy missed all 3 of his field goal attempts, was last on the team in plus minus. But I know what Roddy's not going to do. He's not going to shoot me out of a game. I don't think he's going to get ejected, although Rui Hachimura did want to fight him. All the Dillon Brooks stuff is so bleak. And now that he's available, and this team has not shown the ability or the willingness to turn away from him. Years ago, when I first started Grits and Grinds, during the bubble, or the bubble season, I wanted the Grizzlies to turn away from Dillon Brooks. I thought they had other better options on the roster. I thought Dillon Brooks didn't seem to understand his place in the pecking order. This regular season, Dillon Brooks has specifically understood his place in the pecking order. But now we get to the playoffs, and it's the same story. The same story again. He's averaging, in the last 2 playoff series, 12 points per game on 14.5 field goal attempts a game. I don't know about the shot distribution in the first half. Is that something the team's okay with? They chose to take Bane and Jaren out. But Dillon's shooting 13 times in that situation. And for the result to be what it was, I'm just not sure if it's all worth it. And he's an unrestricted free agent. What his market is and what the organization chooses to do going forward, I used to be super confident that they were going to retain him. I had someone in NBA media text me a couple months ago if Dillon's behavior had finally crossed over where, the team would move on for a moment. I was like, no, definitely not. Now I think, I think probably so. Another guy who really struggled in this game, it wasn't just Dillon Brooks. Lots of Grizzlies players played poorly. But notably, Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones off the bench, scoreless. Missed all 7 of his field goal attempts. Tyus Jones in the Grizzlies' last 2 playoff series. This is 9 games total, 6 against the Warriors, 3 against the Lakers. He's 33.7% on his field goal attempts, 24% from 3. He's 0 for 5 from 3 in the last 2 games. That obviously drags that number way down. So Tyus is 1 for 12 on 3-pointers in the playoffs. Tyus Jones has never shot 40% in any playoff run in his career. Can you trust Tyus Jones in the playoffs? I know he hit some big shots against the Timberwolves, but the Tyus Jones playoff experience hasn't been excellent. I know he started some games and led the Grizzlies to 2 wins as a starter in that span. But if you're depending on Ja Morant, I don't know if he's a guy you can depend on. I don't know if you can depend on Roddy. I don't know if you can depend on Aldama. Aldama's had a very rough series despite making some threes. He's a total massive negative on defense. Luke Kennard, I believe in. That's been a fun turn this season. I was very indifferent, basically, about the acquisition of Luke Kennard at the trade deadline. Luke Kennard has been excellent as a Grizzly, not just the absurd 3-point shooting to finish the regular season. He works hard on defense. He's a pretty solid rebounder. I like the way he competes. I think he's a very good player to keep around. Kennard has won me over. Kennard has passed Dillon Brooks for me, where I'm like, yeah, I'd rather try some Kennard lineups now. Because of Dillon Brooks being ejected, they did run that one specific lineup that I'm most interested in, which is the non-Dillon lineup. Ja and Dez and Luke with Jaren and Tillman. I think they got to try that more and more as the series goes forward. Tillman played nearly 40 minutes. I mean, he has his hands full trying to guard the Lakers' size. He only finished with 6 points, got 12 rebounds, 2 assists. Like Tillman, I think you got to ride. Jaren, you got to play 40 minutes. Bane, you got to play 40 minutes. Morant, looks like he's going to play 40 minutes. Beyond that, it's like, I don't know what you do. Like, if Dillon's having a good game, do we play hot hand with Dillon now? Like, if Dillon starts missing some shots, I would rather, at this point, try something else. A couple of just random stats here. Here's one from ESPN Stats and Information. The Lakers have now won 9 straight game 3s when the series is tied 1-1. That is the longest team streak in league history. Anthony Davis is just the 4th player since blocks were first recorded. This is over 50 years. Anthony Davis is just the 4th player to have 65 or more points, 35 or more rebounds, and 15 or more blocks in their first 3 playoff games of a postseason. Tim Duncan, Hakeem Olajuwon, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar are the other 3. That is a hyper-specific cherry pick stat. When you do the first 3 playoff games of a postseason, that's when you start, just as someone who cherry picks stats for a living, that's when you've cast off, maybe the less desirable results to make it look more exclusive. Now, I don't have to do that much cherry picking for the Rui Hachimura stats. They keep going. The only players to shoot over 50% and score in double figures in each of their first 8 playoff games all time, Cedric Maxwell, Kareem, and Rui. He is still the best three-point shooter of all time in postseason history by three-point percentage. We are 8 games in, but Rui's career playoff averages are 17.4 points per game, and he's shooting 64% from the field. He's the only player in NBA history to average over 17 points per game and shoot over 60% from the field in his playoff career. Will Rui ever slow down? I certainly hope so. Game 4 is Monday night. There's only one day off in between games 3 and 4 and all the rest of the games of the series. I don't know if that favors either team necessarily. Ja Morant's pretty banged up. I think he kind of twisted his ankle and got a cramp at the end of Game 3. He, after the game, I would say, seemed very dejected. His spirits seemed poor. That's just body language reading. But he's acting like he knows he's not going to be 100% for the rest of the game or the rest of the series. But just one day off. Can the Grizzlies get a good performance out of Desmond Bane? Can Jaren Jackson Jr. bounce back? Can Ja Morant go over 40 minutes again? What will we see from Dillon Brooks? What will we see from the coaching staff with how they handle Dillon Brooks? Can Tyus Jones step up again? Will someone unexpected off the bench deliver in this hostile road environment? Quite obviously, the Grizzlies need to win this game. I think they'll have a very good chance. I don't think the series is over by any stretch of the imagination. I keep saying I expect a long series. Sometimes teams get blown out in games 3. It's okay. Just counts as one loss, no matter how much you lose by. So the Grizzlies will have their opportunity to fight back. We'll have the chance to shift some narratives if you're Dillon Brooks specifically. But I know all eyes are going to be on him specifically. Can he deliver? Can the team step up and deliver, show some of that Grizzlies resilience? As far as the Game 4 watch party, there is one in Memphis at the Fourth Bluff Park. There is no official Nashville watch party, but you can still go to Noble's Beer Hall. They will be open and ready for you if you want to meet up with other Grizzlies fans to watch Game 4. I won't be there. We will not be giving away prizes like normal, but you can still go to Noble's, enjoy the drink specials there, and watch the Grizzlies on Monday night. Anyways, please subscribe to the YouTube channel for Grits and Grinds. Give me a 5-star iTunes rating if you don't mind. And I hope you guys are having a great Sunday. Oh, by the way, I will not have a Monday morning episode. This is your Monday morning episode coming out on Sunday. And then I'm traveling very early Tuesday morning. So the wrap-up podcast after Game 4 will be out quite a bit later than normal. Anyways, thanks for the support. Hope you're having a great day. Talk to you soon. Go Grizz.